Dwayne Johnson is certainly an extremely ambitious charismatic player of modern cinema, one of the most popular actors in the world, the richest actor, and now also a film producer, and as Johnson himself called himself Viagra for film franchises. In short, we all understand that this guy has a high opinion of himself, so for the whole of Hollywood and not only, it was a shock when James Gunn and Peter Safran essentially threw Johnson out of the horses of the DC universe, so it took quite a bit of time and it turned out that Johnson decided to go all in, and already intends to create his own cinematic universe to wipe DC's nose. Let's just note that 6 months ago Johnson was called almost a new hope and the future big boss of the studio. Johnson himself, in his pathetic manner, had already told that the balance of power inside the studio had changed, and also boasted of his independence from the past boss of DC Walter Hamada. But then Black Adam came out and almost simultaneously with this replaced Walter Hamada with producer Peter Safran and director James Gunn, and everything immediately changed dramatically, because the new bosses of the studio were clearly not going to share their influence with Johnson. And here it is very successful for them. Black Adam, in which $200 million were invested and on which Johnson personally made huge bets, failed at the box office, but it was not a colossal failure, and yet having collected hundreds of millions, the film still could not cover the huge costs of its creation, so DC in the end was considered a huge amount of money, tens of millions of dollars, from 50 to 80 to be more precise. So after the failure of Black Adam and the change of leadership of DC, Johnson's career in the studio was almost stopped, and to put it bluntly, Johnson was simply kicked out. After that, Johnson himself said that in the near future he does not see the possibility of returning to the character of Black Adam. Translating it into ordinary language, Dwayne made it clear that everything was over with DC. But as we know, Johnson is not the guy who will accept defeat like this and accept it, and his ambitions are of a completely different level. So less than a month has passed since his departure from DC and we already find out that Dwayne Johnson is going to create his own film universe a little bit, and he wants to do it based on Jumanji films. I don't think I need to remind you that this reboot turned out to be more than successful. So Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle earned more than $960 million at the box office without any original stars from previous films, while its sequel still brought a solid $800 million. The third Jumanji film is scheduled for 2023, and apparently Johnson so confident in his success that Dwayne Johnson is already producing a reboot of the little-known 2005 film Zathura, which will link him to the reboot of Jumanji. According to sources, the star of Black Adam is going all in right now and is ready to create a completely new franchise after the successful reboot of Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle and Jumanji: The Next Level. Zathura Space Adventure may not have such recognition as Jumanji, but this is certainly the next logical step to create a whole movie universe. You probably haven't heard about this movie. It was released in 2005 under the leadership of none other than Jon Favreau. The movie then passed by without receiving any financial success or resonance among the audience, although the author of the book on which the film was based, Chris Van Allsburg, he also wrote the original book from Jumanji, and now the restart of Zathura. Johnson apparently plans to link this cosmic story with the story of Jumanji, and make his own cinematic universe out of all this. Most likely such an ambitious plan is nothing but a direct response from DC and an attempt to prove that Johnson will achieve his goal without them. But building an entire film universe is of course an extremely difficult and expensive undertaking, which is not a fact that even Johnson and his team can do, not to mention the colossal financial investments and as a consequence the risks. But observers say that Johnson took a bite in earnest and in fact went to the bank, putting all his influence on his new Megazate. The authorities are finally a financial resource. Apparently now this guy will do anything to wipe DC's nose, although they will not be direct competitors, and yet Johnson is obviously determined to prove that his expulsion from the studio was a big mistake. Well, I'm sure it will be extremely interesting to watch this, especially since the stakes are higher than ever, because in the end, even such a mega star as Dwayne Johnson can't stand the second such giant failure in a row. So everything and even more is at stake, and that's all for today. Write what you think about such Here's the News in the comments. Be sure to subscribe to our channel who hasn't done it yet, and put your thumbs up. Thank you all for watching.